Blog Talk Radio.
Things about our podcast series, Viatorian Voices, our conversations on the way, is that we get to get different viewpoints, different perspectives of people in the Viatorian community, whether it's geographically, whether it's by age, whether it's by responsibility or involvement. And today we're going to take another spin at something we've talked about in the past and get a new view. Hi, everyone. This is Jim Mitchell, and today we're going to take a look at the Viatorian Youth Congress, which we have talked about previously and learned a little bit about. Today we're going to talk about those who are involved in leadership of the Viatorian Youth Congress. We're going to be joined by Patrick Eller and Jean Ang, a couple of people who have been involved, and we're going to hear from them. So first of all, Patrick and Jean, thanks for being with me today. I'm excited about the conversation.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thanks for having us, Jim.
Yeah, looking forward to this. Patrick, I'm going to start with you. You are down in Kansas at the moment. You said enjoying some, at least a little warmer weather. But tell us a little bit about your background, and let's get to know you quickly.
Yeah, so hi, everyone. My name is Patrick Aller. I was born and raised in Las Vegas, Nevada. I grew up in St. Vita Parish in Las Vegas. And with my history with Viatorians, I've been going to the Viatorian Youth Congress. My first one was 2011 when I was a delegate. And my last one was 2018, I believe, when I was a young adult coordinator. So a couple of years with the Viatorians. But now, Jim mentioned, I'm currently in Kansas right now finishing my MBA and playing some more college volleyball. So cheers to that.
Excellent. Excellent. Good to hear. We're going to find out more about those experiences. Jean, a little bit about you, please.
Yeah, of course. Hi, everyone. My name is Jean Ang. I was born and raised here in Chicago, Illinois, with my home parish being St. Vita, Chicago. Went to the elementary school there. Was involved with Viatorian Youth Congress in 2013, 2014. Took a little hiatus and then served for 2 years as a young adult leader and the young adult coordinator last in 2019. And when I'm not involved with the Viatorians, I'm currently a registered nurse at the Children's Hospital.
Fantastic. Well, I appreciate both of you taking the time today. And we're talking about the Viatorian Youth Congress. As I said, we've covered it before, but maybe people are catching up for the first time with the podcast today. So, Jean, I'll turn to you. Can you just give us a little recap of what this Youth Congress is really all about?
Yeah, so the Viatorian Youth Congress, in like the simplest way I guess I could explain it to someone, would be a summer retreat that spans like 4 days, where Viatorian parishes from around the country come together, usually people of around like high school age, come as delegates to this Congress to kind of explore like what it means to not only be like a young person in the Catholic Church, but also what it means specifically to learn about like the Viatorians and their mission and how we can like incorporate those Viatorian and Catholic values like in our daily lives.
So, Patrick, you have been through this a number of occasions, as you said, in different roles. Tell us a little bit about where it first started for you in terms of attending as a delegate.
So the first time that I attended in 2011, we were at a retreat center called Techni, and I vividly remember it just because that was my first retreat ever. And I just remember this beautiful building and then just being around all the Viatorians, just, you know, like Jean said, having all these delegations from all around the United States and even out in Colombia, just being a part of this event and just being able to communicate and just interact with these people. I think comparing my first Viatorian Youth Congress to now, it was the first kind of like an introduction into what the Viatorians are. And then as the years pass, when you get to overlap with the people that you've met from previous retreats and then now meeting new people, it kind of becomes it's sort of like a family reunion where it's the table where everyone sits together just keeps expanding, and it just feels even more homelier than every time.
And you've gone through different progressions, so talk about after you were a delegate, you came back in an early leadership role, and what was that like?
Well, I think for me, when I was a delegate at transitioning into a young adult leader, that was my the year that I graduated my senior year of high school, and I think that was just surreal, just because everyone kind of picks up the progression of starting out as a delegate and then eventually becoming a young adult leader, and to be able to do that fresh out of high school, it was a really fun experience, and I could say for sure I got a lot of really cool leadership experience out of it, interacting with all the Viatorians that we have.
And Gene, I think you mentioned 2011 as your first experience. Can you kind of recap what that was like for you the first time through?
Yeah, the first time I went to Viatorian Youth Congress, I guess you never really know what to expect. I just knew that I would be like spending a few days in the suburbs of Chicago, like going to a religious retreat. So I expected maybe like daily prayer, like mass, like praying through music. But I guess I never expected to find like this big family in this community that has really just become like a really huge part of development in like my faith life, and just knowing that like, oh, I'm not like the only high schooler who is like interested in like forming a relationship with God and like meeting other people who also share those same values and interests, and continue to like encourage you and help you grow in your faith was like a really comforting feeling.
And is that what keeps bringing you back for more sessions? Is it that family atmosphere and that ability to kind of really explore your faith?
Absolutely. That is like the biggest thing that I think everyone can vouch for. Like when they attend Viatorian Youth Congress, you leave knowing that you've just made friends like all over the country, and you have something to look forward to like the next year when you get to see everyone again. And coming back as a delegate for 2 years definitely encouraged me to want to figure out other ways to get involved. And that's, I think maybe Patrick can also agree that that's why we chose to then become like young adult leaders and then young adult coordinators.
And, it's just so interesting to hear some of your experiences. What would you say, either of you, and maybe both of you, if you could take a shot at this, to a young person now, high school student perhaps, who is interested in this, they're hearing about it, they've never been, what would you suggest to them in terms of whether or not they might want to attend the upcoming Youth Congress this year?
I think when it comes to considering coming to a VYC is, I think just analyzing like what your relationship is with God, just because for me, one of the coolest things I've learned from a lot of the Viatorians when talking about your prayer life with God is that it doesn't always need to be so concrete and structured where, it has to have the same exact words every time, or, it has to be said in a certain way, but rather with fluidity, and that it kind of becomes more of like a conversation with God. For me personally, every time I would go into a VYC, I would always kind of have like a conversation with myself and God, asking, what am I looking for in this VYC? And sometimes you may not get exactly what you're expecting for, but the things that you do get from it can sometimes be even greater than what you initially wanted. And at the end of the day, like Gene said, having a lot of those friendships are amazing. I mean, people that I even went on the first VYC with, I still keep in conversation with, or anytime I'm in Chicago or in whatever part of the world or the neck of woods they are in, I can always reach out to them and always say hi.
Mm-hmm. And Gene, how about your
I
thoughts
definitely
on what
agree.
you would say?
If a high schooler were to ask me if I suggest going to Viatorian Youth Congress, I would definitely say you would never know until you try. So I always think it's worth taking the chance to see what you can learn. I think it's a great opportunity to not only surround yourself with other high schoolers who are interested in learning about their faith, about prayer, and learning about how to fit God and faith more into your everyday life. But it's a great place to learn about the different aspects of what the Viatorians themselves have to offer. And again, that family aspect is really irreplaceable. I have been able to form lifelong friendships from attending these conferences, and it's something that I think is just a rare opportunity that should definitely be taken advantage of.
We're talking with Patrick Oliver and Jean Eng today on our Viatorian Voices podcast. We're learning about the Viatorian Youth Congress, but we really want to talk to them about leadership, and that is a role that they have both embraced. And Jean, I'll turn back to you. Talk about your transition to being a leader or a coordinator at one of these events? And frankly, what does that entail in terms of your time and commitment?
Yeah, so as a young adult leader, you show up a few days earlier to the Congress in order to undergo a few training sessions about how to be an effective leader, how to foster healthy conversation, and how to make sure how to manage group dynamics. And then as a coordinator, you come even earlier than that in order to kind of like learn how to be like the leader of the leaders and how to really be a resource for your young adult leaders and how to just make sure that everything goes smoothly and to be that bridge between like the adult delegation leaders and the adult coordinators of the retreat itself to kind of show that, this is really like youth led for like high schoolers and just to kind of like set that example of like this is what you can ultimately like work towards.
Patrick, you really enjoyed your experience attending the youth conference. What is your take about taking on a leadership role? Is that as enjoyable? Is it a different perspective for you?
I think it's a different perspective in a way where it's a new take on the experience where, as a delegate, it kind of becomes something where some things that you learned from the previous VYC are the same, but then when you become into a leadership position, I think one awesome thing about the Viatorians is that you feed the community by bringing yourself and bringing your stories and who you are as an individual, and then they feed you back. And I think that stepping into the young adult leader and then eventually the young adult coordinator position is kind of like that same system where you're feeding the same community that fed you initially, but then you're bringing what makes you unique. And so with the days of preparation, it's one of those things where I think Gene and I have said it enough where, you never know until you try it. And so with that being said, when you're going through those days of training, whether it's the extra days as a young adult coordinator or just showing up as a young adult leader, you never know how you're going to lead until you show up. But like a lot of things in life and how God is, you're ready to lead. You're in that spot. You're given that spot, and you're amongst those people that you went, whether as a delegate or, you've just barely met, you're there for a reason. And, you just have to trust in it and just know that you're there for a reason. And a lot of great things happen from that.
We've got about a minute left, but I'd love to hear from each of you just in terms of the impact your participation has had, whether it's in your ongoing education, your career, your personal interests. What have you taken away from these experiences?
I think the biggest thing I've taken away from Viatorian Youth Congress is not only like help to form my faith and figure out how to fit like prayer and Catholicism and the Viatorian mission into my everyday life, has been like those lifelong friendships that we all have mentioned various times throughout this podcast, just like those people that you can text when not only if you have questions about like, faith or religion, but just also like wanting to catch up with like, again, old family members to see how people are doing. So it's like, it's been a really positive impact, like both on your social life, your faith life, and just something that, we carry like for the rest of our lives.
Patrick?
For me, it's surreal to think that in 4 days you can make such lifelong commitments to people and friendships. I mean, with the retreats that I've taken with the Viatorians, whether it was down in Nogales or just simply visiting for like a Viatorian think tank, these are people that you went on a retreat with, X amount of years ago, but you're still friends and you still communicate, whether it's about your faith life or just still being engaged in each other's personal lives. And I think that that's something that is so unique about the Viatorians that I have never seen anyone be able to replicate it, and therefore I'm so grateful for what we both have.
Gene and Patrick, I want to thank you very much for sharing your thoughts and certainly for sharing your time with the Viatorians, and we wish you nothing but great success in the upcoming Viatorian Youth Congress this year. For those of you who are new, the Viatorian community proclaims Jesus Christ and his gospel and raises communities where faith is lived, deepened, and celebrated. Founded by Venerable Louis Curbs, Viatorians are professed brothers and priests and lay associates who we've met along the way, striving to do everything well so that through each of us, Jesus may be adored and loved. This includes the Viatorian Youth Congress. It returns this summer, hosted in the Bourbonnais-Kankakee region of Illinois. Applications are now available for those who might want to attend. High school-age young people can register as delegates with their youth minister or campus minister. College-aged, post-grad young adults can apply to be leaders and coordinators, as you just heard. It's all information available at viatorians.com/VYC. Thanks, everyone, for listening.